all you're really going to be able to do is get a different sky, maybe try to get really lucky and get sunset or a storm. I mean, if you get lucky and get a storm behind it, that would be fantastic for me. It's all I'd want. But out here, you can be in the Arizona desert or anywhere on the tornado alley and get photos and get lightning bolts that no one has ever seen before and probably will never see again. I mean, that's what drew me to lightning anyway, is almost every single lightning bolt is different everywhere I go. I'm trying to shoot on the fly. I'm trying to make kind of things happen without planning, and you'll get a strike and you'll be like, that no one's ever going to get that again. That's mine. I have the only shot of that. And it can't be repeated with like another nice sunset in the Eiffel Tower in the way kind of thing. So I think for me, it's always something different, exciting, and it keeps you coming back because you don't get bored because it's always different.
It's interesting. You were talking about the mechanics of a storm like that. Um, that very much reminds me of some time I spent up in the Lofoten Islands in Arctic Norway, um,
Mhm.
where a friend of mine, Dave Williams, is one of the world's, I guess, foremost trackers of the aurora.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a similar thing. You have no two auroras are ever the same. It always looks different. But what fascinated me was how many data points Dave tracks every day to know exactly what's happening when the solar flares are happening and stuff like that. And part of the workshop that we did up there was he did an aurora masterclass, really going into detail about the whole the mechanics of the aurora. Because I didn't know. I mean, I
Yeah.
never seen the aurora before. I never seen the Northern Lights before that. I didn't know how any of this even worked.
Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned a storm supercell. What are the mechanics of a storm like that? How does that? What is a supercell, and how does that actually happen? How does that come to life?
It's kind of insane, but so like in Arizona and maybe typical places, there's a lot of you'll get thunderstorms, and in general, a lot of them are kind of what we call like popcorn pop-up thunderstorms where they build up and then they kind of collapse on themselves where, the big updraft is like this explosion of moisture and energy going up. And then at some point it gets too heavy and then it rains down and there's lightning and all this stuff. So out here we get a lot of those and it's the monsoon. And for the most part, that's what they do. They go up. And if I'm chasing them, I better be right there before they collapse because that's what I'm trying to capture on time lapse. And that's when like the lightning will start happening. Excuse me. And then it rains out and you got to hope there's more storms being created. Um, I don't know why I start coughing. Sorry. Um, a supercell is like a thunderstorm that doesn't die. Like, so out here, a monsoon thunderstorm can go up and be dead in like 30, 40 minutes, and that's it. You don't really chase it as much as you're trying to be there. A supercell is kept alive by mechanics in the atmosphere where wind speeds are different, at different elevations. So at the surface, they might be coming in from the southeast, which is generally the direction when you get good supercells. It can be a little different from time to time, but the Gulf of Mexico, not America, is where sorry, I don't want to get political, but the Gulf of Mexico, the moisture gets pulled up through like Texas and all across the central plains. And that's generally coming from the southeast. It's getting blown up there. But then there's upper level winds that are going from a different direction, like out of the southwest, or sometimes winds will be coming out of the northwest and they collide. And so what they do is as the air's going up, they're twisting. So when a thunderstorm goes up, it'll start rotating and start tilting, and the moisture that's getting pulled into the updraft will rain out kind of in front of it, which keeps the base relatively like safe or free. And as the storm is moving, it's still pulling in moisture and rain is coming out and falling and it stays alive. And I've chased a supercell from Denver, Colorado, all the way into Kansas, like 350 miles over 6 hours. And it just went southeast for 6 hours, chased it from like 12:30, 1 o'clock all the way till past sunset. And one of the longest, I mean, and so that one storm stayed alive for 6 hours. And so And supercells rotating, that's where you get the tornado potential too, as they can become surface based, and really a lot of up and down mechanics can cause a tornado to form. So that's where you get most tornadoes, is from like a supercell thunderstorm.
I mean, I remember, watching, TV shows, like Storm Chase, or, I can't
Hmm.
remember what they call it, but, storm chasing type TV shows, and I'm always sort of flabbergasted really by the destructive power of those things. Um, so chasing these storms to me is almost like an insane way of putting your own life into danger. Um,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, how close do you get to those storms?
Um, well, so this last year I had my closest like tornado intercept ever, which was like a quarter mile away behind one that was kind of moving southeast, and I was on the west side of it. So it was I stood out in the middle of a road shooting it a quarter mile down the road with hail falling around, and I never felt like safer. Like I just am like, when you know where a tornado is, it's pretty easy to avoid it if it's not moving at like 50 miles an hour really fast and stuff. Um, for me, I don't know if, for me, the danger mostly is in lightning, because I'm around the lightning all the time, because that's my main focus out here in Arizona. But the amount of lightning strikes out there that have hit close, to me when I've been chasing, has been way more dangerous than any tornado I've been near. Um, Lightning can kind of strike anywhere, and so that part is pretty dangerous. But once you've been doing it for a while and understand how to look at radar and road network, and to really be prepared. I think what happens to a lot of um, chasers when they're a little too they might be a little too reckless, or a little too sucked into what they're doing. I happen to have been leading tour groups, small little tour groups in my truck since like 2015. So I kind of had this bigger responsibility to be safer than maybe I should be, or that I could be if I was by myself. By myself, I might do things different. Um, but I have that in my brain. And even this last spring had one of the freakiest, definitely the freakiest chase ever in Iowa, where we had 55-mile-per-hour moving storms, and tornadoes were dropping out of. I mean, it felt like a made up movie where I'd be like, no, that's just twisters where tornadoes are just dropping out. No, but this was like legit. Like, we escaped one tornado, and then my tour guest, like, the clouds are really weird right above us when we're only 2 miles down the road, and another tornado formed behind us. And then as we kept going east, another one formed. Like, we saw like 4 tornadoes that day and barely got any photos, because all we were doing is running for our lives. And that was a situation that I don't chase a lot of these like fast moving cold front things in Iowa, where I like slower moving photogenic storms that I can time lapse and take my time with. That time is like, hey, we're gonna go see what we can see today. And boy, we got an experience. But the thing was, is even in that situation, I was on the cusp of a tornado. Like, we were probably in the outer circulation, but other chasers got hit by them, and they all were fine and stuff. But even then, I was like, I have 3 guests with me, 2 guys from China, a guy from Australia. But they're getting experience, but we are gonna be safe. And it's literally like, "Hey, guys, we're gonna be running right now to make sure we're out of the way of these things, and then when it's safe, we will figure out what we're doing next." Like, that today is not about trying to get close and all this stuff. This is pretty dangerous. There's a lot of cars on the road and stuff like that. Um, so even with that, I try to be prepared and know my escape routes and stuff like that, and that can really just save you, most of the time. So, after a while, you're like, "Oh, I know. Like, this looks scary, but we just drop south, or we just go east, and we're out of the way in like a half mile, we'll be fine." So, um, it gets used to it. If you haven't done it, it seems really frightening if you're in someone's car. I had an author from England with us this last year. We didn't really get in a lot of dangerous stuff, but she was like, "I'm going to do research for a book, and I'm terrified of storms, so this should be interesting." And she was great and quiet and mature, but I could tell she was, she's never met me before. She's trusting that I know what I'm doing. And for her being in that situation, probably pretty freaky, kind of being under these clouds and bolts striking all around us and stuff.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, then press here for the full episode in glorious Technicolor. Hey, and don't forget to subscribe.